Hello, this is Blaster Toad here. Welcome back to the dungeon generator, procedural dungeon generator. Today we are going to go over how to make sure your player spawns end up in the room you want them in. So something that was brought to my attention by one of the Patreon members is that if they put their player spawn at 000 and they generate a map with some floor culling, sometimes that tile disappears. That's no good, because then you got your player spawning in midair, so let's try to fix that. How are we going to do that? So we're going to, and I've just popped a couple player spawns out here. We're going to get all of our player spawns and paste them inside of or set their location to inside a room area. Let's get started. So we're going to start with a new function. We're going to come in to functions. We're going to make a new function. And this function is going to be called get spawn tiles. Okay. We're going to make some new variables. So we're going to have a new variable set of spawn tiles. Oh. Why do I have... Oh, because I've got all that stuff that's... Okay, so let's not do get spawn tiles. Let's rename that to get player spawn floor area. And then we're going to have the new variable player spawn floor. And that is going to be an array of int vectors. Okay, now we're going to make a new category for that called player spawn. Or player spawning, I guess I'm calling it. Okay. We then want to add another thing under here. So we're going to add a new variable called room index. And that will be a single integer. So let's make that a little bit more descriptive. We'll go spawn room index for player spawn room index. Okay. So now that we have our spawn floor area, we've got our player spawn room index. Let's get in here. So we're going to have two inputs, and our inputs are going to be for these. So our player spawn and our player spawn, or our floor and our spawn index. I'm going to call that room index. Okay. I'm going to do a branch. Straighten it off, and then we're going to set our array. That is all. If room index equals wanted index save floor tiles for player spawning. And there you go. That's just saving us a list of tiles. Okay. Compile, save. I'm gonna minimize this here. Do I have? Oh, no. Oh, Steam VR is trying to run because I haven't removed the thing from there, and we're gonna close the Epic launcher. Okay. So now that we've got that going, we have to go to our event graph, and we're going to add that everywhere we spawn a room. Okay, so we're gonna come right here, put it in there, put in floor tiles, and then we're gonna put in our room index. We're gonna copy it, and we're gonna do the same thing down here. Just putting in our floor tiles. Going back into our debug room, and then we're going to bring in our current index. Okay. Perfect. So right now we're getting the floor tiles from whichever room we set. Now, after we spawn tiles, we need to move the player spawn. So we're going to do a new function, move player spawns. And when we move player spawns, we're going to get that player spawn floor. We're then going to get all actors of class. And that actor of class is going to be player start. We're going to make sure this length is less than or equal to this length. So that way we know we have more floor area than we have player spawns, or at least enough floor area for our player spawns. So we're going to do a branch. And if that's good, then we are going to do a for each loop. Okay, off our for each loop, we're going to need a couple things. So off our player spawn floor, we're going to move it over here, or copy it over here. We're going to get a copy of something in it. We're going to promote that to a local variable. I'm just going to call that tile. So we're setting our tile right there. Okay. So our player spawn, we want to do a we need the length, or no, last index. And then we are going to do a random integer, random int from range from stream. So our last index is our max, our minimum 0. We throw that in there. We get our random stream, pop that in there. Okay. So that gets us our tile. Let's just do that because it's clean enough that we can. Just like that. Okay, there we go. So we've got ourselves a random tile. Now that we have that tile, we want to change it into a vector. So we're going to go to vector. We need to put this into world space. So we're going to multiply by scale. We then need to adjust it for if our dungeon has moved. We're going to add a vector, and then that vector is going to be get actor location. And then we need one more thing here, because we can't just spawn those at the tile location. We need them up off the ground a bit. So we're going to add a new thing to player spawning here. So I'm just going to duplicate spawn room index. And this is going to be player spawn offset. Now the player spawn offset and the player room index are going to be visible. The player spawn offset, and we change to a vector, which we're going to plug in here, just like so. We're going to compile and save so that we get a default value on it, and we're going to set that to 93 because the player spawns are by default have a half height of 92. Okay, so that's getting our location. Get location for spawn. We are then going to set actor location, set actor location. Like that. Okay. Then we want to remove this tile. So we're gonna get spawn floor, remove an item, and we're going to remove tile. So this way, we are not running into trying to spawn the player starts on the same spot. So removing it from the list. Let's compile and save. And then we're going to go to our event graph. And after spawn tiles, we are going to move player spawns. And now, if I hit compile and save, yay, my player spawns have moved around. Beautiful. Look at that. And if I was to go to my dungeon and set my player spawns to say room, what's this, 3, let's do 4. Room 4. Then we now have them spawning over here. Unfortunately, the bad size error isn't being updated automatically. Neat. But yeah, so they now move over here. And if I want them to go back to spot 1, nope, room 1 being 0, they come back over here. Nice. Something that's not so nice is this here. So if you spawn in and you're looking right at a wall. So let's make sure that you're never looking at a wall. So we're going to come back here. You're going to go into our move player spawns. We're going to comment this. Move player spawns to room using valid tiles. There we go. And then we're gonna, for each loop here, we're going to get after location. We are going to get forward vector. So you're just going to do a reroute here. We also want this list of all actors, so we're going to do a reroute down here. I'm going to bring it over. I'm going to do another reroute here. Then we are going to have a sphere trace by sphere trace for objects. Let's do it that way. Okay, so our start location is going to be our actor location. Our end location is going to be our forward vector multiplied by float, which is going to be our scale. Plus the location. Our radius is going to be, say, 20. Our object type, we're going to make an array. And world static and world dynamic. So anything that would block the player, basically. What we're going to ignore is other player spawns, because we don't care if the player is looking right at another player. That is perfectly fine. We just don't want them looking into a wall or directly into something else that's going to block any forward view. And we want to turn ignore self off, because we do want this to hit the dungeon. Okay, we're then going to do a branch. And if we hit something, we are going to get our reroute node here. That is our current actor we're moving. We're going to add local rotation. We are going to split struct pin. We are going to pull off here, and we're going to do select. And then we're going to do a random pool from, no, we aren't. Because then we could get an infinite loop. So what I was thinking was we'd have a random left or right move. The issue is if we get stuck in a corner like, oh, there's got to be a corner around here. Like over here. And we could be like, I'm looking here, turn left. I'm looking here, turn right, and just keep getting stuck in there. So we want to not have that issue. So we're just always going to turn right or left, to your choice, either or. You can have that 90 or negative 90. Okay. And then we're going to do this trace again. So we're going to do a reroute node and plug back into itself. So the idea here is that if it hits something, it turns, and then it checks if it's hit something again. And if it hasn't hit anything again, it ends. But if it has hit something again, it turns, and it keeps turning to the right until it's not looking into a corner. Okay. Rotate player spawn so as to not be directly looking at wall. Okay. So let's see. Do we have any that this is going to affect? Yes, it should affect this one right here. We're going to save. We're going to compile, and that guy should start looking this way. And there we go. So now none of our players are looking at a wall. And then if we move them over to, say, room 4 again, that guy would have been looking at a wall, but now he's looking there. That guy supposedly thinks he was looking at a wall. Or that's the initial one that was originally over here. So yeah. And that way we're spawning them inside rooms, giving them a random location, but they're always going to be on those room tiles. So I hope that has answered the question that was posed of how to get the player spawn always spawning in a room. The actual question asked about spawning just in 000 here. But hey, now you can spawn it in any room you want. So if you want to set that spawn point, you could have a random at the beginning and say, hey, get a random spawn with, oh, not there. It's like we could get a random spawn that's less than this here, and they could spawn anywhere in the area. Or in the first half or first quarter or whatever. Yeah, and that would add a little bit more dynamic to your map. And of course, because everything is random off seeds, it will always spawn them in the same location. Because of how this is going, and when we regenerate it, it's moving different actors to different spots. So it may not always spawn them in the same orientation, but it's always going to spawn them in the same room on the same tiles, just possibly at different orientations. So that is that. Hope you've enjoyed. This is Blaster Toad out, and let's end on the intro, which I guess can also be an extra. Either way, it's a sexy little video.